Welcome to the Notorious Scoundrels, a Star Wars Legion podcast bringing you the latest news, general perspective, and competitive discussion.
Hello and welcome back to the Notorious Scoundrels. I'm not Kyle, I'm Jay. And joining me this week is Lucas from Deutschland.
Hallo, wie geht's?
Und Tim from Canada.
Hey, bud. I'm Tim.
Hey.
Good to have you here, eh?
Oh, what are you chucking about? Yeah, so, it's funny, Tim. So I'm like, probably 40 minutes, maybe last 30 minutes from the border to Canada, about 40 minutes. And so sometimes I'll meet people that say I sound like I'm Canadian. And I'm like, I don't think so. And I just contribute it to being that close to the border, that we've kind of just like, there's like this 45-minute bubble on either end of the border that's just like we're all the same people.
I mean, you just sound like general, like that big cluster of northeastern seaboard, whatever.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're just one of those.
Just one of those, yeah. So I will say, we were talking to somebody the other day about names of restaurants and stuff, and one of my favorite things was like the first time I went up to Kingston in Ontario, like it's just like some of the names of the places were just like pizza, Big Burger, and I'm just like, what is it? Like very like literal, like beer outlet. Oh, yep. Okay. Like, we have all these fancy names and like, brands and stuff, and you guys are just like pizza.
Our the town that's not the second closest town to me, the biggest store is called the Liquor and Lumber, and guess what they sell?
Man, it sounds like heaven for a lumberjack.
Yeah. Oh, it is quite the like rural store of like, we have all the tools you need and all the beverages to make you do the work.
That's perfect. I would love that place. I want that place here. That's my kind of place.
Yeah, you got to cut down trees. We got you covered. And since you're cutting down trees, we got alcohol for you.
Yep. Oh, man. All they need is like some flapjacks and good God, I'm in. Dude, I legitimately love pancakes. Can we just talk about that for a second? Like, they're so good. Right? Like, pancakes are the best.
They are delicious, but I can only have so many. I feel like
I
never feel good after eating pancakes,
Well, yeah, it's fair. It's one of those things where you're like, you never think about it ahead of time, where you're like, well, I'm just gonna have one. It's always like, I'm gonna have 2 to 3. And that's again, then you're like, that was a mistake.
Or you go to a breakfast place and you order your meal, and then it comes with a stack of pancakes. And, I grew up Scottish. My grandma's Scottish, so she's the kind of person, she eats an apple. She eats the whole apple, and there's 3 seeds in a stem. So it's like, you do not leave anything on those plates. So when I always see that stack, it's like I eat my meal, and the 3 pancakes are taunting me. Like, all right, you're not going to waste, down the hatch.
Oh, man, that's so funny. I spent a lot of time in my youth with my grandparents, and my grandfather always had a deal, and he was the same way, like apple, like all that sounds just like him. And it would be like, hey, if we're going out to eat or we're making you something like you request at home, you're licking that plate clean. Like this is how this is going to work. And so, yeah, I'm the same way, where I'm just like, nope, I'm finishing this. There's nothing you can do about it, world. Yeah. And then but
it helps you portion control, because eventually you get to the point where you're so sick of stuffing yourself, and then like, you actually order how much food you need.
Yeah, no,
sure,
that's not how it works for me. But okay, that sounds good, buddy.
Sorry, I'm just trying to cope.
I just like I'm that guy that's like 2 slices of pizza, and then I'm like, yeah, I could do a third, and then I'm like, through the third, I'm like, man, I don't know. Maybe I could do a fourth, and the next thing you know, whole pizza's gone. Done that before. I've housed an entire large pizza and been like,
all you can eat deep dish pizza at Edgecon broke my brain, because like, all you can eat pizza, like that's got to be like, like maybe 6 pieces, maybe 7.
Yeah, no, that's
and I made it to 4 and was like, this 4th one was a mistake.
See, this year I paced myself, because we did the same thing last year, and I ate so much pizza that I just remember like laying in bed the night after the TFT dinner was just my stomach swollen, just like feeling so sick and just like, oh, I gotta go do things tomorrow.
So, and for the listeners at home, yeah, at Adepticon every year we do our Fifth Trooper dinner with everyone that works for the Fifth Trooper, and Rachel and I get everybody all you can eat pizza in Chicago. And last year we made the mistake of, because it's such a great deal, like it had salad and pasta too. So we're like, yeah, do the whole thing. And like barely anybody ate it. And those who did like regretted it because the pizza then came out, So so this year we just did the pizza. We were just like, yeah, just the pizza.
It was a smart change.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I remember I took some pasta home and I was so full. And then the next day it was sitting there. I didn't have a microwave. So for breakfast, I was just like eating cold pasta. I was like, all right, I'm saving money, but so depressed.
I think that night too, we sent Jordan from Skullforge was there, and he was about to have another kid, and so we sent like 7 boxes of stuff home with him. We're just like, yeah, man, take all this, because basically once they cooked the food and brought it out, that's it, it's ours now, right? They can't take it back. So they like packed to-go boxes, and there's like
was so
7
much
boxes.
food.
Yeah, it was crazy, but yeah, those are always fun. I really enjoy those. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're going to talk about Legion, I guess, on this podcast. We've got a plethora of bear topics. So
We have a very fuzzy theme today.
yeah. So so Lucas, why don't you tell us what happened this past weekend there, Brosif?
Yeah, so our first bear topic is in Germany this past weekend. We had the Battle Bear Open, which is
Jawohl.
the second, which is we have a local store that's run by Killian. He's the one that does all those crazy paint jobs. If you've seen like the upside down spider, he got first place for best painted vehicle at Adepticon, second place for best painted miniature, and he was a runner up for best painted army. So super talented painter, but he hosts a shop and has tournaments all the time. And this is his big annual open tournament. And so it was a 48-person tournament, 2 days with 5 rounds, and then a shadow 6th round to get an undefeated winner. And I was able to make it because that is my local store. So it's just a 2-hour train ride away. And 2 hours is a little bit much to go back and forth. So I was able to convince the wife to come with me and get a hotel. So my wife got to meet all the German Legion players and also see the Legion stuff. So she might be painting some Massage Ventresses and Malls coming up soon. She kind of got a little bit of the Legion bug being there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty huge.
That's really huge. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, we not to derail too much from the tournament, but we've been watching like YouTubers who do all this modeling stuff, and she's like, "Oh, that looks so fun." She's super craftsy. She does like painting and tons of knitting and different things. And she's like, "Oh, that looks really fun, making little towns and whatnot." And then seeing all the tables and painted models kind of got her excited. So stay tuned. There might be a Mrs. Technophobia showing up at some events in the future.
Whoa.
Oh boy, how are we ever gonna cope?
I don't know.
But yeah,
Hide the
this
coffee.
event. Yeah. At this event, though, most of the German guys who are like in the tournament scene all came down. So, like, Finn, Marcus, Johannes, Dennis, Richard, who else? Joel. A lot of people coming down Sealam came and traveled to this. So it was about a 50-person tournament, and it had all the top guys in the area. So it was really fun. And at this event, I decided to play Double Dark Troopers. For the people, though, because this Friday I'm putting out an article talking about what I want to be fixed in the errata, and I've played against Dark Troopers and it was miserable and suffering. And I was like, if I'm gonna put out this article slamming them that they need to be nerfed, I need some firsthand experience before I can say this.
Yeah.
And so I took Double Dark Troopers, and then I didn't know what to pair them with, so I just did Boba and Bosk, because if you guys know, I've been double bounty player for a long time. So I was like, let's make half the army something familiar with, so it can kind of carry me as I learn how Dark Troopers work. Turns out they're pretty easy to play. But day one, I had 3 games and went undefeated, and I would say most of the games were like the Dark Troopers pretty much stomped. It's kind of ridiculous. And then even I played against Johannes, and if you guys know what he plays a triple bark with RPS, Anakin with saber throw, and 2 clones with RPS, like an army that should destroy Dark Troopers, right? and it was a close game in the end, but it still pulled out ahead. And that was kind of a moment for me. Like Johannes is one of the top guys in Europe playing a list that on paper is a counter to mine, and I was still able to pull it off in the end. And then day 2 had 2 more good games. Played against Rebels with Richard. Rebels are also in a tough spot, and his recover was able to essentially just mob the center with my Dark Troopers and my Bounty Hunters, take the center box. He tried to do a back flank, and with Boba and the Dark Troopers, was able to fend it off. And then the final game of the day, I played against double Sith, so it was Asajj and Dooku. And basically, the way this army functions is you have Bossk and Boba, and on your first few turns, you play like lying in wait turn 1, so you have order control on Bossk, and then you can follow up with like Boba's 1 pip. And so you essentially have really good order control on your bounty hunters in the first 2 turns. So you're just weaving in and out, taking long range shots. And then turns 3 and 4, you just crash with the Dark Troopers, and like they can't shoot Bossk anymore, because if you're shooting Bossk, you're not shooting the Dark Troopers. And so it kind of worked out really well, the army in general, even though it seems kind of like you just threw 2 random things together. But was able to pull it out again against the double Sith and end up 5-0. And if you guys know Finn, he's another top German. He was the other 5-0. And he had an 8-hour drive ahead of him. And so he and Killian came over and they said, do you really want to play the final? Because you and Finn's one of the people here in Germany, so I play him all the time. And there's nothing on the line. So we called it there. And I had the better SOS because he was the Paradown. So I was able to take the whole event and get my my first win.
In Germany? Your first tournament win is what
my
you're
first
saying.
tournament win in Germany. Yeah, because I got second
okay,
place at Im Norden, which is the big German tournament.
Yeah.
That's the one where Marcus beat me in the final. And then this one, I would have been playing Finn, and he was playing the Black Sun spam list, so it would have been definitely a tough matchup. But like I said, I'd played Johannes and a few of the other top guys, so I had a really strong strength of schedule going through it. Yeah. So yeah, I ended up grabbing it in the end. You know, of course, would have liked to have beat him, but when they were like, "Oh, you can go home early and sleep in instead of staying late," I was like, "You know what? I will take the win and go home early."
Yeah, I have to say, a little sidetrack, but like this new double day tournaments, I both like and hate. Like I like the idea of it, right? And getting a better like winner, you know, at the end of these tournaments. I also hate that it's 2 days, and now, you know what I mean? Like now I have to plan like all these events, or these big events are doing it, like Nova, and I think Gen Con might end up doing it this year. I'm not sure 100% on that one. I know Nova is for sure, but like doing these 2-day events where it's like, so before, when we first started, I just had to give up my Friday or Saturday at a convention. Now it's Friday and Saturday. I have, you know what I mean? It's just, or Saturday and Sunday, like whatever it ends up being. It's just, I don't know. I get it.
Yeah.
It's just a lot.
At least for these, right, in the local area, there's M Norden, this, and then typically like a world qualifier. So there's like 3 multi-day events. So it's not too hard to set aside. If you travel more,
Right.
there are a lot. And then there's the stores, but I guess that's kind of a side effect of Legion just getting bigger, right? The bigger the tournament, you need more rounds if you want a winner. But I really do like how the Germans do a shadow round at the end. For example, M Norden is a 7-round tournament. So it's 6 rounds and has a shadow 7th round. Because, for example, last M Norden, Marcus took the whole thing, but the other undefeated player just didn't play the final round because he was like, oh, you know what, like, don't need to worry about that. So it kind of works out, right? If there's not a Worlds invite on the line, just have it a shadow round and let the players decide if they want to go for it or not.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. So generally, a lot of these are 3 one day, 2 the next day, and you guys are doing shadow rounds, but we haven't done that at any of the events around here. Would you rather have it be 3 and 2 or 4 and 1?
3 and 2. 4 is a long day. Because it also, if I'm coming back for a second day, I feel like I want to play more than one game, you know?
Agreed.
Okay.
Because, yeah, 3 rounds on a second day, you're pretty tired. So you're not always super motivated to do the last one. But, like, if 4 is a brutal day.
Yeah. I mean, we've all done them before, right?
Yeah.
I guess I'm just like thinking, okay, do I want to give up another 7 hours of a convention or an event, or like, because half the time I think it's different when it's local to you, right? But like if you're going to like Gen Con or Nova or like these big events, there's other stuff going on. Not so much like the FLG stuff, but like because they're always I guess, if you're going to Vegas or something, but there's always some other stuff going on. And so you're like, oh, I want to go do this. I can't though, because 7 hours tomorrow, I have to play 2 more rounds. So like in my head, I was like, okay, my 1 day's gone anyways because of 3 rounds. So maybe I just play the fourth, and then if I just have to come back for 3 hours on the next day, then I can at least have the rest of that day to do whatever else I'm into, And Evan and I talk about this all the time, but the more games you play and that you enjoy, like the more difficult it becomes to sign up for these tournaments like this, because it's like you're basically saying, with Legion and Warhammer and some of these longer games, Conquest, I think very similar timetable, but like you're saying, hey, I'm giving up 2 to 3 days just for this one game. But I also wanted to play MCP, and I also wanted to play X-Wing, Malifaux, whatever your other, drugs are. It just, I don't know. I've been thinking about a lot about that lately. Like, how do you balance all that,
Yeah, see, for me, Legion's all I got. I know I don't have enough time to invest in multiple games, so it makes it a little easier.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting how we've gone, because in the beginning it was just 3 rounds, and whoever won by SOS, that's who won, and we moved on with our lives. And I understand getting away from that because we want true winners, but like,
yeah,
I don't know. I also kind of miss those days where it was just like, and that's done. Now I could do something else. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, at least store tournaments are still that way. Like Battle Bear, for example, gets up to 30 people pretty regularly.
Wow.
And so like with that, it's just a SOS cut. But I personally do enjoy having the multi-day things. Because if I'm traveling somewhere, this was local to me, but say I'm going farther to like Im Norden, or they had like the Hanover World Qualifier last year. I wasn't in Germany yet, but that's a bit farther for me. I do enjoy having a couple days to play Legion, because otherwise, a multi-hour, like an 8-hour train ride for 3 games, is a bit much sometimes. But
I also find that like the 2-day things also really help bring communities together, right?
Yep.
Like the night between the 2 days, often people go out and get suppers together. Whereas if it's just a 1-day event, usually people like, do a tournament, great, good to see everyone, go home, right? Or go to something else. Whereas if it's a 2-day event, you're sort of in tournament mode the whole time.
There's a lot more hanging out. In the Germans' case, karaoke. They love their karaoke.
That's good.
But I also
and
got
interesting.
I got this little thing for the video viewers. He made a golden Grogu for all the top players in faction. Little battle bear. So hand painted by Killian. I think it's just gold airbrush, but my own hand painted piece.
What? Yeah, it's just one color.
Yeah, he still painted it.
Just hit it with a rattle can and move on. Like, what are we doing? Oh, that's cool though. That's a cool award. But yeah,
so it was a great event. Killian did a great job. I think before we move
Killian's
on,
awesome. Yeah.
I just want to touch on Dark Troopers too.
All right.
I
Please tell us about everything. How overpowered they are. Tell us.
Yes,
tell us, Lucas. Tell us.
I did it for the people. People are there like, "Oh, you're playing Dark Troopers." I'm like, "I'm doing this all for you."
All right, Kyle.
But like my closest games were against the Republic with Shadow of the Impact, and the only other close game was against Dark Troopers again. I was playing against Mafi, and it just does not feel great that when you play games against an army that like isn't teched for you, it feels like they have no chance. And then when you even play an army that's heavily teched, you still have an advantage. I don't want to spoil fully the article, but basically like the amount of impact in the game has gone up by a ton. And double Dark Troopers right now as an archetype have the highest win rate out of anything right now. So I don't think it's a super healthy sign that everyone's teching for this army to try and counter it, and it still has the highest win rate.
Yep. I mean, I played against Mediocre Mitch at Adepticon, which like same list archetype as you, double Dark Troopers, two Bounty
Yeah.
Hunters. And like again on paper, like my list, like dodge spam plus bunch of impact. Not a bunch of impact, but like bunch critical and some decent impact. And I barely won that game.
Yeah.
Right? Like against like so my list was like pretty much the exact counter to that list. Or at least checked enough that I felt like I was probably advantaged in the matchup, and then I barely won. And yeah.
Yeah,
It's
they're crazy.
quite the
And like
list.
that doesn't even I wanted to play this one too because it doesn't have the IRG. I know a lot of people say, oh, the IRG Guardian is the whole problem. That's not the only problem. I think they're too cheap. Like the fact that I can fit Boba Fett Bosk kitted out with upgrades and 2 Dark Troopers kit out with upgrades. Like how does that work? And it's 10 activations, right? You can do 2 ATSs and do this, but then you're running an 8 activation list. Like I was getting lasts with Bosk with lying in wait all the time and have it. Yeah, it just feels very oppressive because it kind of breaks all the rules. And, I've never played this before. I mean, it took Blizzard Force. I was losing with a bunch until I got practice in, and then I felt mediocre with it. Whereas the Dark Troopers just feel they're very easy to play, and there's not much room for counterplay.
Okay, let me bring up a topic. And I think, Tim, you've been on when I've done this before, but I want to bring this up again. Do we really need erratas and changes, or is just through the nature of the beast of new units coming out, new stuff always coming out, does it end up fixing itself over time?
I guess if you're saying balance through power creep, I'd rather not see that in particular. But I think as far as if you're referring to like, does the meta shift to beat it? I think the fact that everyone's bringing impact and they're still winning says no to that. So, I mean, I think you could balance through new units just being more busted. But one thing I really enjoyed about Legion was the fact that old units always felt good. And like I do like the erratas. Like Vader's awesome now with the different changes. And I would love to see, Commander Luke get like a command slot and go down 10 points. And then I think Commander Luke is a cool option. So personally, I really love errata and that kind of game plan with it all, because it's a way to sell old product. It lets you use your old models, get them back on the table. Hopefully it will lead to more list variety. But
so do you okay, maybe let me rethink my position on this. So could you potentially do errata and point changes on older stuff to balance out the meta versus kneecapping newer stuff that's really good right now because the older stuff hasn't been touched?
I think it's a little both. I think the biggest effort should be making old units better, and then you just kneecap the 1 or 2 things, because it's not like it's a widespread issue. It's really just like Dark Troopers and Blizzard are the 2 big problems, and then you could say, Black Sun and Boba are overtuned. But like if you just kneecapped Dark Troopers and Blizzard, I think we'd be in a much better place. And then, there's a lot of other units you can bring up. So it's like in my article, I have 4 nerfs I call for, and I have like 30 buffs I call for.
But, and sorry, Tim, I'll let you get in here too. Let me ask you this then. When you kneecap stuff, do you open the door for, see, the problem I have is like, okay, Pikes, right? Like Pikes got hit hard right before Blizzard and Dark Troopers came out, and then then Blizzard and Dark Troopers kind of took over and started like dominating. If that was never done to Pikes, would Pikes have been kind of a good, and what happened to Rebels through that dodge spam, massacre, would then these 2 Rebel dodge spam and Pikes have a better opportunity in the meta against Blizzard and Dark Troopers? Like did kneecapping dodge spam open the door for Blizzard Force and Dark Troopers to really take over?
Yes, but I think Blizzard Force also needed to be nerfed with pikes, and because pikes right now, for example, are doing quite well. Like in the data, they have like average win rates.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would say the pikes are example of a good nerf,
Okay.
and it's that the Blizzard was overlooked, and Dark Troopers are new, so
Yeah.
But I don't know if you feel differently, Tim. But like at least for me, I think the pikes are in a really great spot now.
One of the biggest things about Dark Troopers being as good as they are, like, I mean, one, people are teching against them super hard and they're still doing well. But two, as someone who, likes playing vehicles right now, especially the like lightly armored vehicles, quote unquote, right? Like your air speeders, your ATRTs, your things like that are like not super meaty, just get absolutely stomped on by all the impact, right? If you're teching to take out 24 wounds of dark troopers, like two air speeders flying at you, like you're just gonna push them right off the table, right? And that's where that's like straight, like that's as literally unbalanced, right? Like it's like not only is it overpowered, but it's unbalanced in that to tech against this one thing, you're hurting this other thing so much, right? Like air speeders and ATRTs would have to come up so much right now. Whereas if you just tamp down a like vehicles were in a decent place before dark troopers, right? Like some people brought some impact, but there wasn't a lot. And like in general, if you brought vehicles, like every once in a while you get stomped on by impact, but you felt pretty good.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like I like even like the big tanks will often just get stomped on because they're only 9 wounds of red saves, whereas people are teching to take out 24 wounds of red saves.
That's fair.
So Mr. Double L Heavy over there, I'm sure you want to be able to play vehicles. I mean, you want to play Ewoks, but
yes. No, I mean, that's definitely something because, oh gosh, there was some tournament recently that I was thinking about going to, and I was like, what the hell am I going to play? And I'm like, I'll just play double heavy. And then I was like, well, no, I can't because I'll get demolished with all the anti dark trooper, right? So that was like, I don't know what to play, and then I'm like, screw it, I'm not going. And then I'm just waiting for Ewoks to come out. That's my new like thing. I'm on a hunger strike until Ewoks come out. But for other reasons too. But yeah, no, I think you're right. It's just an interesting conversation, right? Like,
yeah,
the problem is here's where I struggle is sometimes I feel, and I felt like this with FFG, this is not a slight against AMG, but sometimes I feel they make some changes. They know what's coming. So like it's hard for me to like envision that they don't go, okay, if we do this, how does this affect these next 2 waves that we have coming out? Right. And sometimes it feels like it's just done for the moment to like shut us up versus like a good balance change to actually like be prepared for these next waves. And I was wondering that with like the fact that they didn't do anything to Blizzard Force, like, oh, maybe something's coming that's gonna, like, maybe Ewoks are like kind of the answer to Dark Troopers, and a little bit maybe, with some of their command cards that we saw. We don't know what the rest of the Ewoks do. I mean, we're going to talk about something but here in a second, but we don't know some of the more specific stuff that Ewoks do that maybe counter armor and all this stuff, right? And so I don't know, it just seems odd.
My worry is just I think that's like how you get power creep, right? Like,
yeah,
you see with like, Pokemon cards over time, the old cards are unplayable because they just kept balancing by making newer and better things.
Yeah.
And so I want old stuff to still be good. And I know like designs change, so maybe at some point like Jin should be reworked, kind of like Vader was, the game shifts. But I think that's why it's kind of like there's usually 1 or 2 things that are too good, and you can just bring those down and then slowly over time bring it back up. And I think Rex is a good example of, right, he needed to be kneecapped. Rex Star was awful, but I think now if they brought him down by 10 points, like he'd be fine. And
yeah,
that's a pretty easy change. We've had time. And I think a big difference too is like when stuff is getting tested, or they only have so many testers and you iterate on different things. Whereas once it's out in the community, everyone's playing with that same thing over and over and over. And that's when you really start to see, because I mean, like when Blizzard Force first came out, people didn't totally realize it. Like I said in the data article, it was coming out because Finn was playing it. It was showing ahead. But it took a while till everyone started seeing it, that the community sentiment really got behind it. So I think it's also just like when stuff comes out, right, there's bigger numbers and maybe certain things that they, didn't think about X, Y thing. And then you have this, now you don't just have a group of playtesters, you have the whole globe of Legion trying to think about how to break this.
There's always some maniac out there like Lupo who like ends up taking something so obscure that no one thought was going to be good and just starts smashing face with it. And you're like, what just happened? Like,
or Lila Claire showing up with eight activation Black Suns.
Yeah, so it's anyways, I just like thinking about this stuff. I know people sometimes get upset when I bring this stuff up, but it's just like I'm not saying what we should do. I just like to actively think about solutions that may help. Like I really think we're to a point where either you've got to do what Warhammer does, which is come out with a new codex that like resets everything, right? And like just wholesale, like everything that's out, that you just change everything. Or I think you got to come up with like a seasons or like a ban list that says, hey, these units aren't allowed at this event or whatever.
See, I guess it's coming from the esports world originally. I have a little different view. I really like, for example, like a biannual update, because the way esports work is they will have seasons, but they will very regularly update and tune things. And so I'd be really enthused if they took a model of they kind of, just regularly kneecap whatever's doing too well, and then they look at whatever's doing really poor and slowly but surely bring those things up. And the idea is by pushing everything towards the middle. Yeah, you're making new things and upgrading old units, but you should, over time, most units should converge on a middle point. Because at least with like GW, right, when they rewrite the game, it doesn't make the game more balanced. It just makes new things good and other things that used to be good bad. It just changes things. Whereas I prefer going towards the center, and you can just every so often errata old units. There are some units that are showing their age, like Droidekas could use like surge to crit so that they actually do damage. But just little changes like that over time to bring old units back into the fold. That'd be ideal for me, because that would be sweeping. Just take out the few top things, look at what's doing really poorly, and bring it up. Because I think the Vader change is the perfect example. Like, yeah, Vader's probably a little overtuned, but he's a one-off hero, so it's not a big deal. And if we slowly over time did that to all the different characters who are showing their age, Vader's all over the place now, and
Okay. Yeah.
That's my dream.
Yeah. I guess I'm just, for me, it's always about just thinking about how you do it and the solutions. Because the problem I have is now there's so many units out that you could try to bring up stuff that isn't doing well, but there's so many things that aren't doing well. And like, because there's so many things out, right? I don't mean that in a like this game's bad. I just mean like you don't see fleets, you don't see lats, you don't see, there's a ton, you don't see snail tanks for CIS. Like there's like a ton of stuff you just don't see. And I know snail tanks have an option now, but you know what I mean? But that option was always there. It's just people are thinking about it now, right? And so basically it's putting the Black Suns and putting them on a snail tank and ramming it down your opponent's throat. But like that's been there since the Black Suns came out. It's just now somebody played Black Suns and did well, and everyone's like, oh right, these are good, even though we've all been like, yeah, those are pretty good too.
I think there's a difference between like units that aren't popular and units that aren't popular because they're bad. Like, for example, I think the snail tank, it's also obscure, but like Commander Luke should be popular. He's Luke Skywalker. Yeah. And the fact that we don't see much Commander Luke is not because he's not a popular character. It's because he's not good in the game.
That's fair.
And so that was something I tried to talk about in this article, because I have some stats and numbers on different win rates. And so I tried to bring up, like, I'm not going to focus on all units that aren't played much. I want to in particular focus on units that are underperforming and aren't played much. Because like another cool one is Mandos, right?
Yeah.
Mandalorian Resistance are such cool models, right? Everyone, if Mandos were good, you would see Mandos everywhere. But since they're so bad, they're not there. And so I think there's certain things, like I think the snail tank is a really good example of this. Like Killian was the top separatist player at Worlds playing the snail tank. I think it has a very specific play style, so it's not popular. Whereas something like Mandos and Luke, if they were good, you'd see them everywhere. I don't think you know, their issues that they're bad.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, yeah, it's interesting, right? But anyways, yeah, good talk. I guess we can move on to the other battle bears if we want to do that. So for those of you not in the know and not hip like us cool cats, AMG announced they announced store kits, and now they've announced their world qualifier kits, which are the regionals, the big events. And during their spoilage of the cards, they spoiled Ewok skirmishers, which I'm not 100% sure they meant to do. Maybe they did, I'm not sure, but it seemed like an odd way to spoil them, but they spoiled the alt art version that'll be in the world's kits. Oh, and interestingly enough, I don't know how many people picked up on this. I would gather to bet that Ewoks will not be out until end of July or August, based on what they said in that, which was Ewoks to be released in summer.
Yep.
So
what else is on the release schedule then? Is Ewoks the next thing? Because
no,
Cody just came out, right?
Ahsoka's coming out
this
month, May. And then I think that's it.
Yeah, and then I think it's Ewoks.
And then it's supposedly Ewoks, right? So I would guess July.
Yeah, hopefully early July. Like it's like because Ahsoka's mid-May.
Yeah, mid to late.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's like early July, it's sort of a month and a half gap, which isn't crazy. Anyway, this card.
Who wants to read it? You want to do it, Tammy? You haven't been talking much. I keep seeing a knife flip into the screen. I'm real concerned about you.
You filleting something in there, or
I'm working on Seraphon models right now, and my like hobby knife is just like a kitchen knife, and it's really long.
Yeah,
and I like it because I am able to do different things with different parts of the blade. But it is funny that I have this like giant like whoop, whoop, whoop.
Well, and you were like cutting the thing off the sprues, but the way it was like angled with the camera, it looked like the knife was just like pointing towards your eye.
Yeah, I mean, I don't use a knife for the sprues, but
I was
it's
like,
fine.
what is happening? Tim,
yeah, he still has his fingers, so he's doing something right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's fine. So these Ewoks, so they're this is the Ewok skirmishers unit. So there could also be other units of Ewoks. We don't know that. It's just Ewok skirmishers. I mean, it's saying Ewok skirmishes makes me feel like there's like a different like Ewok warriors or something, but whatever. They're a mercenary unit. They're the little Bright Tree Village symbol, and also have the rebel symbol. So presumably you can
teardrop.
The teardrop, sure.
Prison teardrop. Come on, this is happening.
Sure. Yeah, they have a rebel symbol as well, so they presumably can be taken in your regular rebel armies. So yeah.
If you didn't know, after the Battle of Endor, they flew a bunch of Ewoks off, and I can fight them with all your air speeders and ATRTs.
So they are 1 health each, 1 courage, pretty standard for core stuff. They have white defense dice. They surge to nothing, either on offense or defense. They only have 1 weapon on their unit card. It is a spear. It is melee only, 1 black die. They have 6 troopers in their unit, so I'm sure off the bat they're pretty similar to B1s. Whatever. They're 40 points. Speed 2. Some people thought they might be speed 1, but they are fast little bears. And then they can take a heavy weapon, a personnel, and a training, and they have the keywords on their card: low profile and unhindered.
Nice. This makes me believe. So I've been under the belief for maybe a few weeks now that we're getting an actual Battle Force box. Like, I think we're gonna get like a box like we did with Shadow Collective. And this makes me believe that even more. The fact that they're core units. I really think we're gonna get like a Shadow Collective box set, and then maybe like the extra, like exactly how the Shadow Collective wave worked.
Yeah, or like any of the other Battle Force boxes too, right? Where it's not the core tools or anything, just the models and cards and stuff.
Yeah, and I guess I think the reason I'm leaning more towards Shadow Collective is because I feel like maybe Wicket or the other name dropped.
Logray?
Yeah, thank you. I just had it in my Logray. That maybe they're like mall where you have to get the Shadow Collective box in order to get them, and then they'll have like extra. I don't know, because the other question is too, because there's two ways to do it, like what Shadow Collective did with the AA5, where they just had a card that basically, made the AA5 a mercenary unit. They could do that with the ATST, but like, I think you're really missing an opportunity to have like a Chewbacca model popping out of that thing, and so I would really love to see them, do something along those lines and have a special ATST, because I would love to see the model get updated too, and like have a special ATST unit with Chewbacca and God, I want them to have gliders. Like, I want Ewok gliders. Could you imagine like little Ewok gliders flying? Oh my God. I'm so happy.
I would love for all the different like obscure battle forces to happen and be fully fleshed out. That's like one thing that I'm a little jealous of the 40K games, is how like much depth the different factions, not jealous of the balance, but yeah, I would love to have Ewok gliders and like Ewok archers. And then,
God.
while we're at it, why don't we have Night Sisters on Rancors, Night Sisters with bows, zombies, gun riders, gun troopers, gun giant lizards.
It's strange to me because I don't believe it's not the rule set that's holding it back. And maybe it's Lucasfilm that's holding it back, but there are all these opportunities. Like, you could have like rock catapults that the Ewoks have. Like, I mean, there's so many like potential for like new faction, like sub factions that have just like weird new weapons that don't make, you know what I mean? And I like, there's so much opportunity.
I think it's just resources, right? Like, GW has the huge teams for developing this, and the game's been around a lot longer, so like they have a lot of more old units, right? Legion's getting big now since it's been around for a couple years. But I since AMG, by their description, they all kind of work on all different games. It seems that the amount of bandwidth is not the same, where GW, AOS, and 40K are like they're two big babies, and they put a bunch of time and effort into it. And I'm sure the team that works on 40K is bigger than all of AMG.
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but here's where that kind of argument throws me for a loop a little bit. Okay, Ewoks makes sense. 40th anniversary, you're releasing it, makes perfect sense to me, right? Like, there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
The Geonosians, like, what the hell is the reason for that? Why now?
Because Separatists need more new things, and they're cool.
There's so many better things.
I also think Geonosians is also a bit of a like it's obvious that the AMG people are, I mean, like me, in the younger generation who like of the Clone Wars, love the like prequels and stuff. Because like for me, Geonosians are super cool. Because I grew up with the prequels and stuff, right?
Sure.
And if you did not grow up with the prequels as much, you probably like Geonosians, whatever. Whereas like one of my favorite things to do in Battlefront 2 was play Geonosians, fly around and shoot clone troopers. So
that's unit wise, I think they'll be interesting too, because they're these flying guys, so they could have hover ground or different things. And so I think as far as unit diversity, they also have opportunity. Ewoks are gonna be very unique. Going back to our Ewok card, when I first looked at it, I was like, 40 points for White says B1s are cheaper than this and they have guns. But then I was like, oh yeah, they can steal heavies somehow. I forgot they said there's something related to that. So I think Geonosians similar.
And they have low profile, which is a big dealio.
Yeah. The unhindered, but I think seems odd with the new rules.
I mean, just move over difficult terrain, right? Like they're just going to
move over barricades and stuff.
Yeah, so, like I mean, it's sort of
heavier,
one big difference in B1s and Ewoks, of course, is B1s are droid troopers, so they just move wherever. Like they get 2 actions all the time. So like the thing that'll save actions of Ewoks is that they can move through terrain, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
So
do love it. I do love it. Somebody tagged me in something on Facebook that was that. Have you guys seen the fan-made horror movie for the Stormtroopers with the Ewoks? And he was like, yep, this is going to be Jay as soon as these things come out. And I was like, 100%. This is how I will play them. But yeah, I've said this a couple times. Yeah, I'm really just waiting for Ewoks. Like, going back to like, oh, hey, what am I gonna play? And I just kept going back and forth, and everything. I mean, we've been doing this for so long. Like, everything's just so boring to me, and it's just like, I'm just like, okay, yeah, I mean, Dark Troopers are new, but they're not like, they're just boring. Like, it's just all boring. And these are the first time in a while where I've been truly like, this is insane. Like, I am so excited about how crazy these things are. And so I'm really excited about that.
I mean, and that's also to your YG notions. I also think like we've seen sort of like the two big sort of species releases or two like species from Star Wars that are very
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
And I like if they sort of have because like I mean, there's only so much you can do with like I have a humanoid-esque person with a gun,
Yeah,
right? There's
fair.
there's like
Yeah.
only so many different ways you can do before you just start running out of design choices. Whereas like you start adding wings to things, you start adding all these little murder bears, right?
That's fair.
It just adds
Night Sisters
more.
on Rancors.
Yeah. So like, and then like we'll probably eventually see Gungans who are gonna be like short range throwing bombas at people and like
Yeah.
maybe have a big shield generator, right? Like it adds
Okay.
diversity to
Yeah, we don't
what
need
you can do
another
with
Empire
units.
troopers. Like, I don't need those trained troopers where they get like Empire is so many shooty guys. I want to see weird stuff now.
So it's interesting. And Tim, I hear what you said, but it's like, in that regard, right? Like, to me, I mean, I guess I was in high school for the first one and then out of high school for the next two of the prequels. But like, when those came out, I almost think like Gungans would have been for like, and I get what you guys are saying about the flight and there's some cool opportunity there, but just like Gungan seems like that's the big one that I was like, oh, everybody, everyone would flock towards that.
They also could be like they've only shown us one unit of Geonosians. They also could not like they could also be like not making a whole Geonosis like
It
battle
could just be
force. It could
separatists.
just be
Yeah.
like a unit, and then like they might be like the next like big battle force could be Gungans, right?
I
Like
gotcha.
there
Yeah.
could be reasons for like right like if you're gonna have big releases, you don't want to have them like all together, both for
Yeah.
resources and sales numbers. So like if for instance Geonosis isn't like a big release and it's just like a unit of like core special forces whatever that you can add to the separatists, that could be why they've shown us that already. And then like
Yeah.
down the pipe is like the next big army of stuff, right? Whether that be Gungans or something else.
That's all fair. Yeah. I'm just thinking with my heart here, fellas. I just want I still like one of the things, and I don't think it's possible in Legion, but one of the things I've always wanted from the beginning was the battle droids, the like deployment tanks, where they just like, yeah, I forgot the name of it, but where they
The
just like
AT?
No, the
Oh, no.
M something something something.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where you just like drive the tank out and like B1s are just like piling out of it, like, transport. I would love to have like a transport like 5, and you just you
Yeah.
just got like 5 B1 units, a transport 5 but only B1 units. That would be crazy. Like,
So
The
but those things
problem
are huge though, right? They'd
they're
be,
so big. It's like
yeah,
the same with like an ATTE or a AT-AT is
yeah.
like they're just so big.
yeah.
Like
So
yeah.
Warhammer has Apocalypse, right? Which is for big battles. Now that we kind of talk about Legion's getting really big, and one thing that could spice it up is more ways to play, right? I think Spec Ops, I haven't been able to get to it yet because I was prepping for Worlds, but I think it could be cool if something like that gets fleshed out. We've expressed we'd love to see specifically like Spec Ops product. But imagine an apocalypse style rule set for Legion and like the flagship things. It's like an AAT, the big droid tank,
Yeah.
a clone walker, and do Rebels have anything big on the ground?
No, I don't think so.
I know stuff from video games, but I don't know if that's canon enough to.
Yeah.
My thing too is like, I mean, it's sort of like the difference between Armada and X-Wing too, right? Like if you want those big vehicles, it'd have to be scaled down. And I personally would love a like army, like like 10mm Star Wars game, but I don't know how popular that would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could get like what's it called? Or not a relative scale. There's a word for it.
Like elastic scale, maybe.
Yeah,
Or
a flexible scale, or
yeah.
because have you seen the AT-ATs that came from the WizKids Star Wars game?
Nope.
Have you ever seen those? Okay, well they're not in scale for Legion, but people put them on tables and they look great. And so I think for some of these bigger things, like even though, you know, the tank could be like the 2 AATs long, and that's not the actual size of that one tank. I mean, I'd rather see it on the table, 2 or 3 AATs long than not on a table.
Well, because I think the actual scale of an AT-AT is the Kenner Power of the Force toy line one, which I have that, and it's giant compared to the battle. Because when this all first happened, and I was looking to like build terrain, my parents live near Disney, and so they got like the popcorn buckets, and I was like, oh, they're not quite the right size. And then I found like the Kenner toy at like a garage sale or something. I'm like, there we go. I like put it on the table. I'm like, holy shit, this is huge. I'm like, oh my god.
Well, I mean, you have to think about like, because what it was like, there's like 6 speeder bikes can fit in the back of an AAT or something.
Yeah.
Right, like line up 6 speeder bikes end to end, and like that's an AAT's like back.
So sliding scale. That was the thing.
Sliding scale. That's
But Armada uses it, right? Because the Super Star Destroyer shouldn't fit in our Armada table based on its size, but they fudged the numbers, and so I wouldn't be super mad if they did that with Legion. Because there's also what's it called, the Warlord Titans in 40K. They're like huge, and you never see them, but like it'd be kind of cool to have something like that exist. I mean, that's even bigger than like an AT-AT would be.
Yeah.
Well, I also think like there's already a bit of a sliding scale. I think like a lot of the vehicles are like have a bit of applied downsizing to them.
Yeah.
I think
there's like a giant lizard for Seraphon, right? In your game, the big lizard.
Oh, the Jetstorian, that doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't.
Nope. I'm currently building. This is look at this. Look at this guy.
Ooh.
These models are.
I was a dinosaur kid, so if I would never branch out, but I have definitely looked at those models and thought about it, because I love Total War and love being lizard guys.
Dude, so this game Conquest, they have the orcs. It's orcs and dinosaurs. So like one of their war leaders is an orc on the back of a T-Rex. It's frigging gigantic model. It's huge. And so anyways,
I mean, then you have Seraphon where you have lizards riding dinosaurs, and
you could have a Rancor, like they're the size of an ATST.
I was just gonna say, I would love to have a Rancor in the game. Like Knight. I know I've already said it so many times in this cast, but Night Sisters would be such a cool faction.
Yeah.
You have like witches that summon zombie units. So you could have like force powers that summon units that, say they live for 2 turns, or they have like health decay, something cool like that. And Rancor riders, that would be the coolest thing. Like, I want Night Sisters on Rancors.
And like the zombies too, it's like as you kill small base troopers, they like come back as like super weak models, but they're zombies. And they just like, the more you
could
kill,
do all sorts of new spicy mechanics with it. So I would love to see like obscure factions in Star Wars, but that would introduce really unique mechanics.
Or you could even borrowing some mechanics, like you could do like a version of treat capacity, right? Like where if the zombies go down, like they can resurrect them, like as long as it's this turn, if they're within range 1, and they can do up to like 3 zombie minis a turn or something. Like that would be great. Like instead of like spawning them, you start with zombies as your core units, and then your commanders and operatives or something could like resurrect them once they like, so you think you like depleted a zombie unit and they've like raised 3 or 4 more per turn, or
it's like treat 2 capacity infinity heal zombie trooper or something like that.
Well,
you just have to make it capacity 6.
There you go.
But I think all that stuff would be super cool. I mean, I'm trying to think, what are some other obscure stuff in Star Wars that are not even obscure, but like mechanics wise, that would be really cool.
I won't get into too
the huts.
Yeah, the huts. Yeah, I won't get into too many spoilers, but like a lot of the stuff in Mandalorian, right? Like I know
Yeah.
it's weird, right? Because it's like a remnants versus rebels or republic. It's a weird era now, but like there's ton of new stuff in that. I think even going back, like I think there's a real opportunity to create a Mandalorian battle force where
I would love that.
you could just take all the Mandalorians that are available and put them into one, one
Well,
battle
you can make
force.
a Bo-Katan. You can like double dipper, right? Because you can make what's the company? You can make it like Bo-Katan, Ahsoka, and clones, and then have that same Bo-Katan model playable in like a Rebel battle force with
Yeah.
Mandos. And so like you can mix and match existing units and just give them new battle cards.
Yeah,
Or
she could be like 3, right? Because
yeah,
she could be with the Republic, she could be with the Rebels, and she could be with her own like battle force that's like a Mandalorian battle
Yeah, I
force.
would like to see just
did she
like
ever
any.
fight for Maul? I think she did. So she could even be in Shadow Collective. Because
She
he
like
kills what's his face, or does she leave before that?
no, she leaves during the
Okay, so she
like
leaves as
I
soon as
think
Maul gets there.
technically she fights for him, but like she nopes out of there pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you could do something like so you would need Bo-Katan and you could make her like her folks be core units, and then you bring them into the game, and then what you do is you create a battle force where she's the leader, the rightful leader of Mandalore with the dark saber, maybe even ride in a mythosaur, who knows? And then, to scratch Lucas's itch with Rancors. And then
Yeah.
what you do is you give her the dark saber, have her be the rightful leader of Mandalore as a commander, and then she could take all Mandalorians for the army. Like that
I
would
would
be
love
that would be
mounted heroes.
crazy. That would be
Mounted
crazy.
heroes would be so cool.
Yeah.
Like Han on a Tauntaun.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on a Tauntaun just sounds terrible. But
anywho.
But yeah, I think a like keyworded quote unquote like battle forces where it's like, okay, we have someone who can unite this like faction that has sort of random units across all the and just like whatever they are, throw them in.
Yeah.
Which gets real fun for balancing, but nah, it's neither here nor there.
I mean, Mandos aren't any good right now anyway, so.
Battle forces were never meant to be balanced, Tim. Didn't you know that?
Oh, right. Right.
They're not meant to be competitive.
They're just fun. Stop bringing balance into my fun.
Yeah. I mean, there's another easy way to fix your errata problem. It's just make battle forces not competitive legal. There we go. And you don't have to balance anything. You just remove it from play.
Yep.
This is true.
Yeah.
See, I just feel like Legion's getting them like the player base and big enough that they can start using actual like numbers to help a bit and do quick. I mean, for example, since 2023 has started, I think on Game Uplink, there's like over 2,000 games recorded. Like that's real numbers that you could use to look at these things. So I think I'm optimistic. As a community gets bigger, your communities are play testers, and so I think it should get easier to balance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Even though there's more stuff, you got more people playing.
Yeah. I mean, one thing like AOS, like at one point was a very unbalanced, very game, but then people started doing like stats shows and like recording stats and stuff. And GW was like, would not listen to them for a while, and then eventually went, screw it, we'll listen to you. And then once that started happening, like the game got very good. Very like AOS is actually quite a good game now.
It's like a resource that's right there, and you don't even have to do that much thinking. You can just look at the stats, and I mean, obviously, I'm the stats guy, I guess, for Legion right now. Like, so I have mixed, conflicting interests, but conflict of interest. But yeah, I think it seems like a no-brainer, right? Like you can get so much information from that.
Yep. Yeah. I made a dino. Oops.
Oh, stop blurring. Put it in front of your face.
There we go.
Oh, nice.
See, those are such cool models.
Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, we did it.
Yay.
All it took was me finally winning an event in Germany, and then you took me back.
All it took was getting Kyle off the cast, so we didn't have to record this at night.
Yeah, actually.
I record with you all the time, Lucas. It's just it's Kyle. So for those of you that miss Lucas, write into Kyle and tell him that you don't want him on the cast anymore and you want Lucas instead.
Oh gosh, I hope they don't do that.
I hope that they do, because it's hilarious.
Because you're not gonna get the angry message, Jay. I'm gonna get the angry message. Why are these people telling me to come back? And I'm like, Jay said to do it.
Yeah. Perfect.
No, good to be back.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening. We will we'll see you next week, I guess.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
All right. Well, bye everybody.
You're not gonna say the thing?
I don't remember. What's Kyle's thing?
We are the Notorious Scoundrels.
Scoundrels.
I'm Lucas.
Lucas.
Oh, man.
I'm Timbo.
Well, no, I don't like this. I'm Jay, but I don't
Stay
like this.
fresh. Cheese bags.
Woo! He said the thing.